Welcome to the Pursuit Podcast. During the spring semester, we are focusing on the themes of rest, renewal, revival, and reconciliation. We hope these words from the Student Ministries team will not only challenge you, but encourage you. Enjoy!
What is up, guys? Welcome to the first podcast of the series, I guess, brought to you by Student Ministries. My name is Ben Tiskovics. I'm a double major in international business and international relations with a minor in Asian studies. I'm a sophomore here, and this is my second year on Student Ministries.
Boom, let's go.
Yeah, I'm Laura. I am a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior here. There's quite a bit of argument over which I am there. And I am a psych major here.
Craziness, right on.
Oh,
My name is Noah Leinen. I'm a double major. I'm a freshman here at Bethel. I'm a philosophy major and reconciliation major. And this is my first year on Student Ministries.
Let's go. Okay, so to get this podcast rolling, I guess we are the first ones, and our, I guess, subject matter is on rest. And so what better way to, I guess, start this podcast and this, series and diving into what rest is by first, defining what rest is. So we looked up the definition, just typical Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Why not, right?
Why not use the dictionary?
Yeah, exactly. And so what we found was, I'm just going to read a few of the definitions that it gave us. First off, rest is a bodily state characterized by minimal functional and metabolic activities. Rest is freedom from activity or labor. Rest is a state of motionlessness or inactivity. Rest is peace of mind or spirit. Rest is a rhythmic silence in music. Rest is a brief pause in reading. And rest is something used for support. So all of those things, I guess, they really embody just, the action of nothing. The action of not doing action, essentially. And so something that really stuck out to me, that was just, how they also put a rhythmic silence in music in there, too. Noah, you are in music. You're in choir, right? Choir and band?
Yeah, so I play saxophone in the band.
Yeah.
And for me, this speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Because, when a composer is making a piece of music and he has this 8-bar phrase or 12-bar phrase or whatever it be, and he has all of these notes and all these different people playing their instruments, or essentially it's supposed to be different voices. He has these different voices and they're all saying something unified or they're saying something dissonant or whatever it is. But then after that, one or two voices might cut out and rest, or maybe 3 or 4, or maybe all of them will cut out and rest. And it's not just a time to just simply get your breath. It is a time to get your breath and get ready, but also it's a time of silence. It's a time to know that we're playing this rest on purpose. It's a measured rest. It's 4 beats or it's 8 beats of rest, and the purpose is nothing.
That's good. That's really good. And so, yeah, I guess with just defining rest is through the dictionary and also just through music, I think we get a good picture of what society and culture really, I guess, defines rest as. Yeah. But what does Scripture define rest as? I mean, we're Student Ministries. I mean, we always look at Scripture.
Gotta look at the Bible.
Exactly.
Jesus, where you at? And
so we decided to, I guess, dive into what God defines rest as and what he essentially made rest to be. And so we started out with Genesis 2:2-3, and it says, "By the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done." I mean, guys, God didn't need to rest. I mean, he's God.
What?
But he definitely he rested, and he created that 7th day as a restful day, and he made it holy too.
Yeah.
So it's it kind of begs the question is why did God make that day of rest if he didn't need it? But then Mark 2:27 kind of answers that question, and Jesus is talking to the Pharisees about this. And then it says, "And he said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.' And then another translation says, 'Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath.'" And that's, I guess, that changes how you look at Sabbath, I guess. Not God resting, but God made that for us to rest. So we work and we labor and then we rest. So that kind of begs the question. Growing up, I kind of had a different view of Sabbath, I guess.
Yep.
I'm more of a more religious view of Sabbath. So I'm curious, what do you guys think about when you hear the word Sabbath? Or how did your faith background affect that?
Yeah, well, I actually grew up Catholic, and so the Sabbath was one of the most important days of the week. And so you'd go and you'd have to do mass and all of that kind of stuff. And it was treated with a big amount of holiness and also a big amount of requirement. Like it wasn't something that was like, it was really something that we had to do as human beings, like almost in a way to please God, instead of almost how I see it in Mark is a little bit of the opposite of that, of like the Sabbath being made for us and this rest being made for us, instead of like us trying to have to like do something to please God. But yeah, growing up, like that's kind of just how I saw the Sabbath, was just like this really, really key day of the week, of which like I was supposed to like abstain from all like work specifically.
Dang. I didn't know you were Catholic. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I was like, what? That's awesome.
What about you, Noah? What do you think?
What do I think the Sabbath means?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, sure.
I love it. Right now, I think the Sabbath is this absence of work. What am I saying? Absence of work, to glorify God. But like going back, I guess to your original question was like, what did I see it as growing up? It was really like menial. It was basically like, what is that? Oh, it's Sunday. Like it's the day that you watch football. You might go to church if you want to, and you show up and like you do some homework. Like it's not a day like dedicated to resting the Lord. It's a day of getting your worldly jobs out of the way, like your checklist, right?
Yeah. Okay. Dang, I can see that.
We get there.
I was kind of similar, I guess.
Really? Okay.
I guess growing up, I mean, very religious background. Sabbath was like, don't move, just take naps, kind of thing. Exactly. So I don't really think that's. I guess you will dive into that later. I guess like what rest actually looks like.
Yeah.
But I think Sabbath is so much more than just us like sleeping, or just us not going to work or whatever, and just like, spend time with your kids. It's so much more. And so I guess we'll get into that in a sec. But then I guess the Bible further not defines rest, but it kind of like tells us how to rest almost.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so Matthew 11:28-30 says, "Come to me, all who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And I don't know, the verse from Matthew 11, I guess, really applies to every aspect of, I guess, rest, like physical, mental, and definitely most importantly, spiritual. Jesus says to the people, "Come to me, all who labor." This implies that Jesus is definitely like inviting people to come to him. I mean, just go to him with their labor, their toil, their burden. And the word labor, I guess this passage is directed to those who technically labor. And so that word labor in Greek is from the word, forgive me, kopio. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Not fluent in Greek?
No, I'm not fluent in Greek.
What?
And so that word describes, means a person who has become completely exhausted due to nonstop continuous work.
Completely exhausted.
How crazy so that's us.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's college students. So, guys, go to Jesus. Seriously. So yeah, like God is saying, Jesus is saying to come to me, all who are exhausted, people who are continuously working, come to me and I'll give you that rest. And the word rest in the Greek, forgive me again, I don't know how to pronounce this word. It's anapau, I think. And that word means to refresh, to rejuvenate, to reinvigorate, or to revitalize. So that passage is saying, come to me. I'm inviting you to come, those who are exhausted, those who are burdened, and I will refresh you. I will rejuvenate you. I will reinvigorate you. I will revitalize you.
I really get this image of like shalom, like coming unity, like made new again. Like here's this broken piece, and I will rejuvenate. I will revitalize. It'll be made whole again. And I think just shalom is like just a super good, maybe not synonym, but just a word that you can put alongside rest, and just use them together to describe like what we're doing on Sabbath.
No, I like that. And I guess another way that I take this Matthew 11 passage and apply it to like spiritual rest is like spending time with the Lord. I mean, that's like one way that we can just like really bring everything we have, bring all of the burdens and the struggles we have and the exhaustion that we have, and really come to him to get that refreshment, to get the revitalization that we need, I guess, to continue to do what he's called us to do, essentially.
Yeah.
And then Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God."
That's great.
So just resting in his presence, being still, also resting, and just know that he's God, that he has got you. His yoke is easy, his burden is light, and he came to give you rest. He came to refresh you, to rejuvenate you, to reinvigorate you, and to revitalize you. And so I love that. I really love that.
I love it. Let's go, Jesus.
So I guess how do I guess, I don't know, I'm curious, how do you guys define rest? I mean, like, Laura, Noah,
Yeah.
how do you guys define rest?
Like I kind of went on it before, but for me, it's like it's this time specifically, intentionally set aside for God. Whether it is resting physically or whether it is resting spiritually, you can set a time and intentionally know that this rest or this sort of silence, metaphorically in terms of like band terms, this rest is for a purpose in God. It's to come to know God or to reflect on God, to talk with God. And whatever that looks like, he's there with you, and he's there walking alongside you.
I like that. How about you, Laura?
Oh yeah, y'all going so serious with this, and I'm over here like the first thing that comes to my mind when you say rest is like Netflix and a couch. Like, that is my
Let's go.
That is my
Right
first
there.
thought is like The Office and me laying all the way down like sprawled man spread over this entire couch. Like that is my first thought when somebody says rest. But if I'm gonna take it a little more theologically or psychologically, I
Love it.
would say rest. For me, is kind of like this continuous break from work, and it's not always inactive. It's not always something that takes away from everything, but instead it's more the absence of trying to like fix everything in my life or doing all these new things.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of taking more time to reflect and move back, but also like The Office.
Yeah.
So
love that.
good.
I always go back to The Office. That's so good.
You said something there. It's not always being still. It's not always inactivity.
Yeah.
Could you describe that a little bit for me? Like what it's like to rest but not be inactive? Like what?
Yeah. So like I think about it like this, like even if we're like sleeping, like an entire like complete space of sleep, like our bodies are still working, like we're still like healing from injuries, like fighting illness or like rehearsing like for memory and learning. Like have you ever like woken up the next day and like all of a sudden like everything on that Quizlet suddenly makes sense?
Oh yeah.
And you're like, heck yes, I'm gonna kill this exam. Not actually though, because but no. And so I think like we have this idea of rest as like this like complete like inactivity, but instead I think of it like more of an active rest.
Okay.
Like we're
purposeful.
working, like something that's purposeful and it's intentional. And so like I bring up this study, it's a psychological study, and these individuals were used. So basically what they did is they had these photo pairs that they were like told that they were going to have to memorize and learn. And so they were like presented with all these pairs, and then in between the task they were just told to rest. And they could do whatever they wanted in that time. And then after a certain amount of time, they were asked to recall the different pairs. And so people who during that time like were rehearsing or thinking about them, oftentimes it's so much better. But in that, it's like you have to ask the question, is that really rest? And I would say, yeah, like they still had that time to rest. And really that's because it's rest in the sense of new mental challenges weren't being encountered. They weren't working at something new. They were reflecting on something. And that's why they were able to do so much better and perform so much better. And so that's almost how I see rest as being like so key and so important in our lives.
Yeah.
Dang.
That's awesome.
That kind of segues into, I guess, Noah, what you talk about, like with mental rest.
In a way. So I'm going to start out with a quote actually by Evelyn Underhill. She's a author on Christian mysticism. She says, "At this very moment, your thoughts are buzzing like a swarm of bees. The reduction of this fevered complex to a unity appears to be a task beyond all human power. Yet the situation is not as hopeless as it seems. All this is only happening upon the periphery of the mind, where it touches and reacts to the world of appearance. At the center of the mind, there's a stillness which even you are not able to break." I love this quote.
That's good.
Because it's Evelyn Underhill talking about how Jesus is the keeper of our peace, of our stillness, and like, man, we are busy bees. We're all the time, like, right? College students or whatever might be, like workaholics, but like we just go and go and go. And even like you can kind of see like you can get a down like a bad mindset on it. Like, man, this is the way we need to be. Like, this is our culture. We have to live this way. But she's saying, nah, like it's not as hopeless as it seems, right? Because at the center of our brains, at the center of our minds, at the center of our souls, our well-being is Jesus holding peace. It's Jesus holding stillness, right? Like love, joy, peace, fruits of the Spirit, man. Jesus is that keeper of that peace. So no matter what we do, we're humans. Like, we can't take that peace away from Jesus. We can't We can't make it so he can't give it to us. Like we can throw away the peace he has given us, but he's always there. He's always there offering peace and love and joy and obviously everything else. But we can just keep living in Jesus. Yeah.
That
So
was deep. That was really deep, man.
sorry. Tangent.
You're good.
No, but so mental rest. This is a form of mental rest. Mental rest is not necessarily like said and talked about in the Bible. Like there's no verse. This is mental rest. But you can kind of see in a couple verses, and we've already talked about a couple of those. But another one is the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. So here's peace coming into this, that Jesus Christ is keeping for us because he does keep the peace. For me and in my life, mental rest has been a state of oneness or inner tranquility that you can almost think of living as in the present. So God made our brains and God made our bodies, and he made it so we're supposed to rest our brains, we're supposed to rest our emotions, basically. He calls us to rest our emotions and be in the present, not in the future, not the past. So like something for me, once again, is anxiousness for the future or shame of the past. And yeah, we can learn from the past and we can think about the future, but we're not called to live in the future, and we're not called to live in the past, because God made us in the present. He made us to experience him in the present. So we're going to experience, like, we should experience him in the present. We shouldn't be stuck in the past, the future of the past.
Yeah, I think what's so cool about the present too is it's unique. Like this is the only time like we're ever going to experience the presence as
Love
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that we get to like constantly repeat. It's just like this moment is completely unique.
Yeah. That's crazy. There's so many. Yeah, like even if it's something like kind of crappy going on, like there's always that moment. Like you can realize this is a one kind. Like God made this world, and there's only one of these moments that's gonna happen. Like even me speaking here.
Hopefully it happens again.
Hopefully it happens again, but it'll never be the same, right?
Yeah, no.
So
that's good.
That's anyway. Yeah, dude. Craziness. Rest. Being present, intentionally present where you're at.
Dang. See, that kind of. So with mental rest and spiritual rest, I guess we have like, what we have left is social rest and physical rest. Laura, do you want to, I guess, go into what does it look like to, I guess, have social rest or partake in social rest?
Yeah, I think like we live in a world that's like so focused on almost extroversion, like this idea of like we have to be super personal, especially like walk into any like big Christian church and it's like for anyone with social anxiety, oh man.
Good luck.
Like I think it's just we're so focused on like we have to create relationships with people and do all this stuff and kind of almost run around all the time, and I think it can get stressful. And like this idea of like kind of stepping back and having space to just like be kind of us and God in a moment. And I think a big way that I do that personally is just like journaling. Like I have my journal, and like every night, like that's just a time and a space to like, kind of take back from like all of these social things that are going around me and just kind of having a little bit of that space. And so I think honestly, like a lot of Christians can really learn and grow from like having introversion be a bigger part of our lives and seeing like introversion and extroversion as more like these equal parts of a yin and yang instead of something that's like so staggered and so different.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. I mean, going to like big churches, I guess, around in the Twin Cities, you definitely, like loud music is playing, everyone's like jumping and dancing. And
it's like greeters that are just like, hey, what's your name? Let me
exactly.
find
I mean, I love that kind of vibe, but like at the same time, like, there's so many people that like don't.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know if you do or not, Laura, but like definitely a lot of people have like be like, how do I guess how do I escape that, or like how do I like navigate through, I guess, that kind of atmosphere.
Just part of the culture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it's kind of like forced upon you.
Yeah.
To like what you said is like kind of like extroversion is kind of forced upon people.
Yeah.
To be outgoing, to be wild and energetic all the time.
But
but in reality, that's so hard of a demand like to put on people. Like really, like they need. I mean, even Jesus. I mean, how many times did he leave the disciples? He left so many times just to go up to the mountain to pray or to go by himself and pray. And like we really take that for granted. Like how important those times are with God, to really just get away from people, to get away from other things that we're doing, and just sit with God. Yeah, solitude. And by ourselves, and just like and just meditate on Him and His Word. And it's like that's so key, and we don't really, I guess, in this culture, it's not very
It's
emphasized.
something that
No.
should be celebrated, and it's
Yeah.
a benefit to us. It's something
Mhm.
that can really grow us, and so I think it's really important to take that time and take that space.
I got a question for you guys.
Mhm.
Do you guys think you can be resting in the Lord, but also in community? Can you be socially resting in the Lord?
What do you mean by that? Define that.
So like we were talking about like going off and like being still and like
Mhm.
like Jesus goes off and prays to the
Yeah.
Lord, and it's one-on-one, right? It's him
Mhm.
and God, and he specifically leaves the community.
Yeah.
Do you think our community can find a way to rest in the Lord, but as a community? And if so, like, what would you guys say that looks like? Like a thing that comes to my mind almost is like during a worship set,
Yeah.
and you have maybe the bump up song, you have like the original song that everyone knows, and you're just like, hey, you're worshiping, right?
Yeah.
It's going good.
Yeah.
But then finally, like, I don't know, something that's just like quiet, and maybe not a lot of people know, and it just like
Mhm.
everyone gets quiet, and everyone's just like there and just reflective. It's
Mhm.
just like this atmosphere that comes over, and
Yeah.
man, you just like you rest in the Lord because you
Yeah.
don't know the words, you don't know like when the beat's gonna drop,
Oh,
like
yeah.
like it's everyone being quiet in the
Mhm.
Lord and together in that
Mhm.
rest. That's something that comes to my
Yeah.
mind, and like
No,
I don't know.
I definitely see that. It's kind of a mixture
Mm.
of both, to be honest. I mean, like while you're still in that like that corporate setting, I mean, like worshiping and then like everything just like is still and everything's like quiet.
Yeah.
And like like the collective, I guess, congregation is like quiet and reflecting on who God is and
Mhm.
like what He's done. But like within that though, it's like everybody is also individually
Yeah.
reflecting. So it's the perfect balance and mixture of both, of like everybody being in that setting, but like all still like solely reflective, but also like corporately reflective
Yeah.
on who God is and like what He's done for us as a people, but also what He's done for me as, like individually.
Inward, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, that was good. That was deep.
All right.
So,
Segue.
yeah. Now I will be talking about physical rest. And what that looks like. I'm still figuring it out. I mean,
Same.
definitely as a college student, that's like one of the hardest things.
Wait,
that I've
you
had
don't
to
get enough
struggle with.
sleep?
No. I don't. No.
Bruh.
Like the body. We were just talking to some biokinetics majors and
Real
some
smart
some
people.
nursing majors.
Really
yeah.
smart people.
It's about like I guess why do we need rest? But like the body is designed for rest or for sleep also, like mainly for sleep, but like for rest itself, and like it can't operate continuously like without proper sleep or proper rest. Like you literally die.
Actually, though, you will like
Yeah,
get your sleep.
Yeah, so like take me for example. I mean, like I'm not dead, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
snaps.
But like I think I've been getting around like 6 hours
Mm.
of sleep, averaging 6 hours of sleep for the past few weeks, and I'm like so drained. Like I was like feverish this morning, and like I almost didn't think I was gonna make it here to do this, but like not getting enough rest has an adverse effect on like almost everything that you do. I mean, it has an effect on you cognitively, emotionally, socially, physically. I mean, like I have no energy. I don't feel like I don't eat as much. I'm not hungry. I am more emotional. I'm more like, I'm not emotional, but like I'm more like on edge.
Yep.
I guess, and uneasy. Definitely in social settings, I don't want to be around people because I don't feel good. And then like cognitively, I can't focus in like classes or like putting things together, doing homework. And so like, it's just, I don't know, like physical rest is like so important. And like Jesus even himself shows that too. Like, there's a passage, a pretty well-known passage, Mark 4:35-39. And it says, that day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And the wind died down and was completely calm. I mean, Jesus was, prior that day, was busy tending to the crowds, ministering to the crowds, healing the sick. I mean, feeding these broken
Just
people.
casual.
Yeah, just doing typical Jesus things. And at the end of the day, he was exhausted. And like there was a freaking storm.
What? How are you even?
And he was sleeping in like at the
He was
forefront of
resting.
the boat. He was resting,
Yeah.
sleeping.
He's sleeping.
And so like Jesus, who's fully God but also fully human, I guess showed us like that our bodies definitely need rest. And he definitely showed that. I mean, just like all the times he went away to pray, got away from the disciples, slept in boats. I mean, he really just like showed us, I guess, what it means to really rest.
That last verse 39. So he says quiet, but then he says be still to the wind. Like he commands the wind to die and be completely calm. But even more than that, like, right, what was it, Psalm 49?
Psalm 41.
41?
Or 46.
Rest and
Psalm 46.
be still and know I'm God. Like, he's commanding the wind to know I'm God. Or he's God. He's commanding the wind to rest.
Yeah.
That's just like, what? Why would the wind need to rest? Oh,
Yeah.
because, like, he commands it to.
Oh, that's good. I didn't even notice that.
Commands us to rest. Like, what are we doing not resting, right? But,
Dang.
man.
No, that's good. And that's like, I guess even though like Jesus did that, and like as Christians, like we should definitely be like, I guess, doing that or practicing that, and like practicing all these good things about rest. But like I guess our culture makes it so hard to really do that. And like, like just like ask, if you're asked the question like, what does culture say about rest? I mean, like I found this article, by something like the Atlantic Times or something. I'm not really sure, but I found this article, and it said, in his 1899 book, The Theory of the Leisure Class, the economist and sociologist Thorstein Veblen wrote that, quote, conspicuous abstention from labor becomes the conventional mark of superior pecuniary achievement, end quote. In English, in other words,
Literally English.
the richer the person gets, the less one works, and the more likely one is to try to show off one's ample leisure time. So I guess back in the day, the more money you had, I guess the less you worked, and people tried to show that off. But like nowadays, I guess, especially in the U.S., like one can make a guess of a person's wealth, their success, or status by how many hours they work a week. Like people brag, like parents brag to their friends like how many hours their children are working a week. Like they're working 70 hours a week. I mean, like,
what? Hello?
But like now our society defines success as how much you work and how hard you're working, because like to be lazy or to constantly be resting is looked down upon. And so that just makes it hard, I guess, for us to actually rest, because we fall into that and be like, oh, I need to be busy. Like I can't tell you how many times people come to me like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm really good. I'm staying really busy. And like, but that's not that's not good.
No.
I mean, like, it's like good to have things to do and to, I guess, to get stuff done.
Yeah.
But like we need to, I guess, be more intentional about how we're resting, and like how important it is to, I guess, dig into scripture, dig into the presence of God, and like really just sit in there and rest in that, so that everything essentially comes together. But
that's crazy.
And like I'm just like going through this, like, and just like talking about this with you guys, it's like it's making me more sure of how spiritual rest is like an umbrella for everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's like spiritual rest is like you resting in like God, and God giving you that refreshment, that rejuvenation to go out and do what He calls us to do. But like God takes away like our anxiety. Like He gives us that peace that we need. So there's mental rest. God provides food, provides sleep, provides I guess just like time with Him alone. And that provides both physical and social rest. So like all of these things, like while we may split them up, they're all so interconnected.
That's
and
crazy.
rest has like different like branches, but like they all are part of the same tree. Oh,
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like it.
And so
he is the vine.
And I don't know, it's just so cool to see, like, going back to that Matthew 11 verse. I'm just gonna read that again, actually. It says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." What a good reminder.
Love it. Let's go, Jesus.
Honestly, seriously. Do you guys have any other thoughts on just like how you guys rest, or how balance everything. Like, how do you balance like rest in both God and also just like everything else? Like, how do you find a balance in that, especially as a college student? It's like, what do you guys do? Like, what are the ways that you rest?
Yeah. So I guess I got two kind of ideas. I'll go throughout the day and I'll start like, honestly, I'll feel crappy. I'll feel like maybe a little feverish, like headache coming on. And I'll be like, what is going on? Why is this happening? And I'm starting to realize, man, that's a sign of physical, like, sleep deprivation. Like, I need to sleep enough. And that's just like, obviously go to sleep. But even more than that, like, when I'm working these long days and I'm starting to do homework and I just get like irritable and frustrated, and I'm like, I see someone, I'm like, I'd normally love to have a conversation or even say hi. I just get like ticked off and I'm like, leave me. Yeah, no, that sounds horrible, but like, like that'll happen. And then I'll like kind of reflect on it, like, dude, no, what are you doing? Like, first of all, you're not loving your neighbor. They're like, dude, like, that is totally not okay. And one of the things that like I've started to realize is like, if I go to the prayer chapel, man, I love it there so much. I walk in, it's just so quiet, kneel down and just like talk to God. Man, if it's 2 minutes or it's 5 minutes or whatever the time might be, when I walk out of that room, I feel so much more confident in that. Even though my body might be this expendable piece, this object, like, he's still got me. It's just like, I don't want to say it's just a reminder, because it's more than a reminder, but at the face value of it, it reminds me of, I'm a child of the one true King, and like, it doesn't matter how I feel all the time.
Dang. So it's almost like that's a verse in scripture. Like, you being tired, like being exhausted, and going to God, and I guess leaving feeling rejuvenated. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like we've been talking about that for the past like 30 minutes.
Hello.
So I mean, it definitely, I guess, has to be true. Like, I've experienced that so many times too. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want to keep talking about Laura. I mean, like, how do you feel about balancing rest and work and college and everything? How does it look like for you?
No, it can be hard sometimes. Like, I'm very blessed this semester. Like, y'all gonna be really jealous. I'm so sorry. I have no classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh my gosh.
And my Tuesday, Thursdays don't start till noon.
What?
Which basically means I'm on like a 2 to 10 a.m. sleep schedule right now, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I'll speak from my previous college experiences with normal 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. starts. But usually, honestly, journaling is one of the big pieces for me to like keep up with that rest. It's just every night, like, taking the time away. And sometimes, like, I'm getting into bed, I'm like, I'm just ready to sleep. And I'm like, nope, gotta get up and do this, because I know that, like, the next day, like, I'll feel the effects and I'll know, like, there's been obviously a difference to just, like, take that time and reflect for me. Even if sometimes it's more of a prayer, sometimes it's more really just, like, kind of walking through my day or things that are hard for me. But it's been really, really helpful. And that's kind of one of my main things that I continuously go back to when I'm, like, looking for that rest.
Love that.
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome.
That's really good. Yeah, I don't know.
Bring it back?
Should we wrap up? Just like
only,
summarize for all
only if the listener wants
all of our listeners. What do you guys think? How you guys feeling?
Say
you rested?
you feeling rested yet?
So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any ending notes, but I feel like basically, if there's a takeaway from this, it's that God gave us rest.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, just like looking back at like Genesis when He created the Sabbath, He didn't create it for Him. He created it for us. And not that we meet the requirements of not working or walking a certain number of steps per day, but He created the Sabbath to meet the needs of the people, to meet your needs. And the Sabbath doesn't have to be on just a Sunday. It can just be a holy, set-aside time where it's just you and God. You guys just talk it out, and just like you sit and you pray, you read the Word, journal, whatever you need to do, and just sit and rest in God's presence and give Him, I guess, your burdens. Give Him your heavy loads, because He's not kidding when He says His yoke is easy and His burden is light. I mean, He definitely makes it easy, and He definitely makes it light. So I want to encourage you guys. It's definitely hard being college students and having all of these things, like tests, lots of homework. But I guess with all things, in all things, God makes it possible.
Amen.
I guess. And so, like, even though we may think it's a insurmountable challenge, I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, again, when you put God in the mix of that, and so He will definitely give us that time. He will definitely give us that rest. So, be seeking those times, because that spiritual rest is probably the most important aspect of our lives, as it connects to everything else we do, emotionally, socially, relationally, cognitively, physically. And when you start to really just rest in who He is and who He made you to be, there's so much freedom in that, and there's so much like rejuvenation in that, like He promises. And so I want to encourage you guys to stick with it. Definitely do your homework. keep doing your homework, but also find that time, find that sweet spot in the presence of God, to really just rest.
Thanks for listening to the Pursuit Podcast, brought to you by the Communication Department Podcast Studio. Make sure to check out BSG's Instagram page for our other available episodes. Email Student Ministries to get connected with our weekly devotionals that complement this series. Have a blessed week.
Take every treasure, take this